Hey everyone, welcome to the first Anime Girl Profiles Confidential of 2016. And as you can see, we are going to talk about Fiona Fox from the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book. And to say that Fiona has a very complicated history as a character would be saying a little too, wouldn't be doing her justice. I mean, initially introduced in the prelude to the Tales miniseries, which was known. The prelude was a two issue backstory, a two-part backstory in the main comics. It was called Growing Pains, and Fiona was introduced as an animatronic. What we didn't know as fans at the time was she was based on a real character that we'd be introduced to later on in the Knuckle comics. So So yeah, she would be introduced, like I said, later on in a side story or something, one of the main stories that was in the Knuckles comics. So basically, long story short, uh, she kept showing up on and off. One of the last story arcs, multi-part story arcs she was a part of, was a side story involving Mighty the Armadillo looking for his friend Ray the Squirrel, going off a tip and everything. And Mighty ends up encountering Fiona and Knack the Weasel's sister, Nicole the Weasel, or Nick the Weasel. So yeah, in the comic, Knack had a sister called Nick, N-I-C that is. So anyway, that was one of her last appearances outside of making kind of showing up in the World 25, basically before showing up in a cameo, I guess you could say, in issue 125. Now, what was funny about this is, issue 125, she gets saved by Tails. From kind of, he pulls her down, basically telling her to watch out, and from a blast. And the next time we see her after 125 is in 134. 134, well, actually not 134, but we get introduced to her, or reintroduced to her, around issue 131. It was about that, 131, 130, about, yeah, about basically about 131. She's basically, I guess, as the year went on in the story, because Sonic was in space and time-wise, he thought it was just like a few days or a few weeks, and actually a whole year went by. uh, Basically, she had become, I guess you could say, a member of the Freedom Fighters, and she was a good girl. She was, I guess, from what I could tell by reading the issues and looking back on it and looking up at the information. She was trying to redeem herself through the Freedom Fighters. She was trying to leave her past behind and start a new life. And that worked well for a while, except Carl Bowlers, when he came on board, well, Ken Penders and then later Carl Bowlers more so than anything. Well, both Ken Penders and Carl Bowlers, let's just put it that way, decided to start pairing Fiona up with Sonic because in 134, which was written by Carl Bowlers, by the way, Sally had broken up with Sonic publicly. And there was a while where we didn't know whether or not Sonic and Sally would be back together. And during that time, Ken Penders and Carl Bowlers decided to pair Fiona up with Sonic, and this caused a lot of drama, if you want to put it that way, story wise, between Sonic and Tails. And basically, Sonic and Fiona were an item, I guess you could put it this way, for about, I'd say 20 or so issues, 20, 21 issues or so. They were an item, 21, 20, yeah, I'd say about 20 to 21 issues. They were an item in the comic because I guess in a sense, Penders wanted to give Sonic someone that was similar in design somewhat to Fiona. And of course, like I said, this caused a lot of unnecessary drama between him and Tails. And what I mean unnecessary is when Ian Flynn took over. Ian Flynn kind of give him all the credit in the world for this. Tried to fix a lot of the mistakes that he felt Ken Penders and Carl Bowlers had made. One of the mistakes was, why all of a sudden was Fiona a good girl? Why was she with the freedom fighters? What was the point of her being there? You know, the last time we saw her, she was like a pro antagonist. She was an anti villain. She was a trainer. She was an anti hero. She was a treasure hunter, a bounty hunter. You know, what's the point of her being there? Why all of a sudden she wants to redeem herself? So basically, starting with the first issue he worked on, which was about 160, Ian Flynn had planted the seeds that there was something more to Fiona than was being led on. And come issue 172, pretty much he had Fiona go back to being a bad girl, or at least becoming a pro antagonist, a, uh, a kind of a pro antagonist, which is basically a protagonist with an antagonist like attitude, if you will, a pro antagonist, as well as sort of an anti villain, anti hero. He basically made her go back to what she was because it didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense to him, I guess, in my opinion, onto why she was there. And that was part of the fixing that he was doing, Ian Flynn, that is. So later on, basically about 6, 7 issues later, well, basically 7 issues later, because this part took place in the second part. Because this scene or this a moment took place in the second part of the House of Cards mini arc, and basically when Tails and Sonic were fighting, yes, they were fighting. You know, Sonic was wondering, you know, what is going on with you, man? Why are you? What's up with all this pent-up frustration? You know, I've done everything I could. Basically, Sonic goes on to tell him, hey, look, everything I've done has been for you, and basically, or it's been to benefit you or to help you. And by saying something similar in that manner, that basically set Tails off to where Tails finally let out why one of the main, if not real, reasons behind this anger and frustration was the fact that Sonic had dated Fiona. And Sonic had done this knowing that Tails was in love with Fiona. That's just it. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wait a minute. Ian Flynn solved the whole Fiona situation, being in the Freedom Fighters, in issue 172, but still dragged it on to about 179, and that's the reason for Tails' anger. Exactly. That's exactly it. Basically, Ian had, you know, like I said, he looked probably at what Ken and Carl had done and said, no, this doesn't make any sense. Did what he did in 172 to kind of make Fiona go back to what she was before. But in 179, he finally decided to resolve that whole situation between Tails and Sonic, and why Tails had all this pent-up anger just suddenly coming out and bursting forth. And one of the main reasons was because Sonic had dated Fiona. And Sonic did this knowing that Tails had feelings for Fiona, that he was in love with Fiona. And, you know, it just, it just did not sit. It was just something that had been boiling up inside. Now, thankfully, Ian Flynn did something. Did something in the issue where Sonic he stops fighting and he's like, "Look, man, you want to swing at me? Go ahead, take your frustrations out." And he does apologize for acting like a jerk to Tails and admitting that he shouldn't have dated Fiona, knowing that Tails had feelings for her. But here's the reason why Fiona was dating Sonic and vice versa, while under Ken Penders, Carl Bowler's, and for a brief time, Ian Flynn's a run on the comic, his early run, that is. And that is because, from a age demographic in the story, in the old continuity, if you will, or the old, well, basically the same continuity, old timeline, whatever. Uh, Fiona was about Sonic's age. She was 15, 16 years old. And here's Tails. He's about 12, 13 years old. And Fiona's reasoning, and I think this was a Pender's issue maybe. Yeah, I think it was. She basically admits that, she's just too old for him. That she likes him as a friend. She really, really likes him, but it just wouldn't work out because she's older and he's young, and she needs someone at her age level that she can, share, uh, certain things with, share certain moments and secrets with, and stuff like that. So, yeah, that was one of the main reasons, storyline wise, under Ken, Carl, and for a brief portion during his early run on the comic, Ian's uh, early time on the comic, Ian's run on it. Who, so yeah, so basically that's was one of the main reasons. I know that was a little complicated, sound confusing. I do apologize, but that was one of the main reasons. Be right back. Sorry about that, folks. Anyway, like I was saying, initially at that time, oh, sorry, my finger hit the mic there. Uh, Basically, from an old timeline continuity wise, from Ken's run to the later portion of Ken's run, the portion of Carl's run, and the early portion of Ian's run, basically, um, the reason Fiona didn't want to date, didn't want to get serious with Tails was because of age difference. That was the thing, and she needed someone about her age that she could understand, share secrets with, share moments with, and stuff that I think from from her perspective, she couldn't really share with Tails. So yeah, I know some people might think, well, that's a little mean spirited and stuff, and it kind of is. But when one thinks about it from a reality standpoint, sometimes it does have some truth to it. Not really, but somewhat. And again, like I said, she was being portrayed at the age of being the same age as Sonic, about 16, and Tails was about 12, something like that, 11, 12, in the comic age wise. So it basically was, it just wouldn't work initially in her eyes. Now, excuse me. Now, as far as post 172, let's just say that's when Fiona became very popular uh, in the eyes of the fans. True, some fans didn't like what she had done with Tails, and you know felt that she needed to be taught a lesson. But overall, because of what Ian had done, she had become very popular. Fans actually started to like Fiona because now she was not just a bad girl, somewhat a pro antagonist, like I said, a protagonist with antagonist attributes, but she was also that anti villain, anti hero that you just hate to love and love to hate, and that excuse me, that kind of propelled her to a popularity stance that I don't think anybody saw. And she kept, and the thing is, her dialogue was better. I guess I will agree that her dialogue was a little bit better. It was a little bit better, and she was more opened. She was more open and more carefree, I guess you could say. It's kind of like in wrestling when a top babyface turns heel. You kind of say to yourself, well, as a heel, they can be more expressive, they can be more entertaining, they can say more, they can, do more than what they're able to do if they're limited to being a babyface. And that's exactly how Fiona was. It's like she was, in the eyes of some fans, limited to what she was capable of as a freedom fighter, but now as excuse me, but now as part of the Destructives and as Scourge's evil Sonic's girlfriend or love interest at the time, um, she was given more freedom. She was given more attributes than she'd ever had. She was able to do things and do things and say things she's always wanted to say and do, and or used to do, and being a way, be things, if you will, be you know you know be what she wanted to be, more so than she would have as a freedom fighter. And I think that's why a lot of fans got attracted to this new bad girl persona that she was given. Now, I don't know if Ian Flynn was ever planning on breaking her and Scourge up, because maybe in the eyes. Now I didn't read the Lockdown miniseries in Sonic Universe, but I could almost swear that it seems to me that Ian might have been planning to break her and Scourge up and maybe redeem her down the line. I mean, I did a video or two on that, even wrote a topic on it, I think. And to me, I think Ian Flynn, in my personal opinion, was planning on redeeming her down the line. So that's just my personal opinion, but we'll just have to guess from now on exactly what he had planned, because unfortunately Fiona became a victim of the legal lawsuits between Penders and Archie Comics. Now, I don't know if Fiona was a Ken Penders character or she was somebody else's character, but because of the lawsuits, Archie Comics is not taking any chances in bringing her in. Now, if they do bring her in, she's probably going to have a design similar to what she had before, but it would be completely different. My opinion on it is, if they do bring Fiona in, she's going to be brought in as a good girl. I don't know why, but I've got a feeling they're going to bring her in. She's going to basically be a good girl with a bad girl attitude. In other words, she'll do the right thing for free and fight for freedom and help those in need, but she'll do it in a way that someone like Sally or Bunny or someone can confront her and say, "Hey, you don't. That's almost going to go a little too far. You got to be careful." So kind of like that edgy kind of good girl like character, if you catch my drift. But that's only if she's brought back, because right now she's kind of one of those characters that's in limbo, because we don't know, because of the lawsuit, whether or not she is going to be able to come back or she's gone for good. We'll never know. But overall, that's all I could say here on this edition of the Animated Girl Profiles Confidential, the first one of the new year on Fiona Fox. And that's all I'm going to really say, folks. Let me know what you think down below. What are your thoughts on Fiona? Do you think she's going to come back in the new timeline? And how do you think she's going to be brought back? And what are your thoughts about her? And what did you think about Ian Flynn turning her into basically what I call a pro-antagonist, if you will, an anti-villain /hero? Let me know.